The Educated Climber Podcast.
The show for arborists, tree climbers, and entrepreneurs who make their living in the canopy.
Climb high, work smart, read more.
What's up, Climber Nation? Tree Mugs here. Today on the podcast, I am joined by a legendary YouTuber speaking to me on the phone from the mountains overlooking Silicon Valley. This is Mr. Blair Glenn. So in this episode, we talk about his backstory and how he got into the trade, his love of rock climbing, building a business in this industry, working with his son, running a successful YouTube channel, and leveraging his notoriety from YouTube to sell tree work. We talk about Alex Shigo falling off the stage, some of his mentors over the years, close calls, and much, much more. Blair is such a class act. It was such a treat to having him on the podcast. I know you guys are going to love this. So, without further ado, please enjoy my wide-ranging conversation with Blair Glenn.
Hello?
Blair, how are you?
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, I'm doing good. Yeah, we've been talking about doing a podcast for quite a while now, so I'm glad to finally.
Oh, you're going to put me on the spot here, huh? Okay, let's go for it.
So yeah, I found you through YouTube actually. Started watching some of your stuff, and I really enjoy it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, like filmmaking is something that I'm really interested in, and I just find it fascinating. So maybe we could start there. Like, how did you get started in filmmaking? And was
well, let me ask you a question first.
Sure.
How old are you?
I'm gonna be 38 next month.
So you've always learned digital film, and you really have no experience with old school stuff at all, then?
That's correct. When I was in high school, I remember we had a tech course, and they were still doing linear, but that was at the very end. That would be like 97, 98. So that was when digital was.
So you do have an understanding of linear editing versus non-linear editing.
A little bit, yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, when I was in college back in 1980, I took 3 years of television production classes.
Okay.
And all we did was linear editing. And for those of you that don't understand linear editing, it was very different. You had 3 tape machines. You had the original and what you were copying to, and you had a third one that you did a transfer to. Mm-hmm. So you had a switch box. So you would have A, B rolling, and you'd have to switch it and build a third, somewhat degenerated copy of the tape.
Yeah.
And nowadays, it's just so amazing. I'm still in awe, when I can just pull out a piece of footage and put it anywhere I want to and play with it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Computer editing just changed the entire world of content and media production. It's unbelievable looking back. Yeah. So was that before you got into tree work then, when you were taking those courses?
No. I started my business in 1973.
Oh, nice.
I'm 65 now. This is celebrating 46 years of climbing trees, and I'm still a climber.
Wow.
Not as fast and with a bit more pain, but I'm still climbing.
That's awesome.
But no, in 1980, one of the main reasons that I took the television production classes, I had the idea that there was a big need for training videos. Back then it would have been VHS tapes.
Yeah.
So I actually did it mostly because I envisioned, video as an educational tool. Mm-hmm. Then I took it a step further, and I used it mostly for doing walkthrough video consultations, as we do a lot of big business parks and condominium complexes. And if I've got hundreds of trees to deal with, I can walk and talk with a video camera and present it to the board.
Oh, okay.
And,
I see.
And back then I'd deliver a VHS tape and they'd pass it around. Now I put it on on YouTube or something and send it over to them. They can all watch it.
Okay.
It's a really valuable way of helping a lot of people make decisions.
Okay. That's really interesting. I've never heard of anyone using that technique.
Now you're going to do it.
I probably will, yeah. Okay, so you started with the idea of doing educational stuff. Did you pursue that?
To an extent, I did. I found it difficult because producing VHS tapes and getting them out there. Back at that time, there was lots and lots of educational videotapes going out.
Okay.
I mean, there was everything from how to juggle to how to skateboard, how to this, how to that.
Mm-hmm.
And the market kind of got washed over with the idea. And so I kind of put the actual video production of VHS tapes on the shelf for a while and just concentrated on how can I benefit my company, how can I help my clients. So they were all more personalized. And then 10 years ago, YouTube came along.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, YouTube started in 2006.
2006, yeah.
Yeah, and I started my channel in 2008.
Okay.
And even then, it was like, is this going to turn into anything?
Mm-hmm.
And YouTube has turned into something amazing.
Yeah, well, your channel has done really well. I think you have, like 24,000 subscribers right now?
Yeah, I'm getting there. I consistently get new subscribers. I get 10 to 20 a day, and weekends sometimes I'll get 100 at a time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But my topic is a little bit different than a lot of other tree guys,
mm-hmm.
as is yours. I really like your topic. Yours is more specific about the gear and the knots and the individual aspects. So I commend you on what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
I think that you're refreshing in the industry.
Oh, thank you.
Because there's a lot of guys out there, they'll strap their GoPro camera on and get up in the tree, and they put high-tech music to it, and it's all about look at me. And it's exciting, but, you see it so many times. It's like, okay, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a big tree again.
Yeah, well, but, I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it is. So my topic is really more helping people, professionals as well as homeowners,
mm-hmm.
to identify problems in trees.
Okay.
And I kind of break it up. I try to keep it a little bit interesting, and sometimes I'll talk about just a specific tree.
Mm-hmm.
And to back up more of the purpose of my channel, originally it was all about I want to put together videos that I can email to my clients or text to my clients.
Yeah. So
if there's a specific problem that they have, and I have already done a video that's close to what their problem is all about, boy, that goes a long ways. Almost automatically gets the sale, but
definitely,
it sure helps people out, and then they talk to their friends, and before you know it, your business grows.
Yeah, I love that idea. So do you sort of focus more on making content that would be useful for people in the industry, or do you focus more on homeowners and business owners that you're communicating with, or do you do like a good mix of both?
I really try to mix it up. I try not to be too rigid.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be something that's relaxing enough so that even a layperson would enjoy watching it.
Yeah. But
I've got a whole bunch of different types of viewers. I've got some seasoned professionals that chime in and will add to the content.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've got a couple of guys that when I put a video out there on a specific topic, fairly recently there was a discussion about decay and roots and whether it's better to do clean cuts or what happens if they get torn up with a backhoe. And there was quite a few professionals that chimed in and added their comments,
mm-hmm.
and some of them were very, very well written. They were, it's like I feel like I'm generating a community of professionals that are assisting in the topic.
Yeah, definitely. I think the first video that I found of yours, it was something like a really difficult tree job or something. It was a tipped over tree on a house and a chimney.
Oh, that was called Tree Job from Hell.
That's the one. That's my number
one video. That one's got over 2 million views on it right now.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a long video. I worked with the crew that whole job, and periodically I'd just bring out my cell phone and kept it all going. I did all my camera work with a cell phone.
Nice.
But it was always with me. I've got a little cell phone pouch, and so whether I was up in the bucket or on the roof or working with the guys, I just pulled it out. So I told the whole story, and the story lasted over 3 days, and then YouTube picked it up and featured it on the sideline, and that one just took off.
Okay, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting a video to go viral is really hard.
Yeah.
And you can have some of my videos I believe are really good.
Yeah.
But they just sort of limp along. I'll get lots of great comments and people say, but it just doesn't take off. But once in a while, I think I've got 5 or 6 videos that really went over 1 million.
Yeah.
And that's when YouTube says, well, let's put it over on the sideline here, and everybody sees it. But then again, that changes your audience too. Yes,
it does. Exactly.
If 95% of the people that are viewing it are viewing it just because it's a thrill, exciting, wow video, then they'll never watch another one of your videos.
Yeah.
That's all they care about.
Yeah, exactly. That's really fascinating to me. I had a very similar experience about 6 weeks ago, I guess. I made a video called Drop World, and I spent literally countless
I watched
hours.
it.
Oh, did you?
I watched it.
Okay.
I could tell you spent a lot of time editing.
Unbelievable how much time I spent editing that video, and I thought it was just going to be amazing. I mean, it did turn out amazing in my opinion, but I thought it would get picked up or something. But it nothing happened, and then a week later, I literally took 1 hour. I took a clip of me setting up a safe block and using it to rig down a piece of wood, and it took me an hour to edit and put together and upload it. And that video went not really viral, but mini viral. It had 100,000 views in 10 days, and then now it's over 125,000. And Drop World only has less than 3,000 views. So we're really at the mercy of how YouTube manages our videos. Yeah, there's a lot of serendipity there that you can't really account for. You know what I mean? And
it does help to have a lot of subscribers.
Yeah.
It does help if a lot of the subscribers comment or hit the like button.
Yeah.
So if you get a lot of action on your video right off the bat, I think that triggers some sort of a notification over at YouTube, and they'll pay attention to it and maybe feature it. Probably some robot somewhere is watching it.
Oh yeah, it's a very sophisticated algorithm that they have to figure out what to play next, because that's how your feed works, right? It just you watch to the end of the video that you're on, and then if you wait a few seconds, it'll just automatically populate a brand new video. And if yours gets picked up in that algorithm, it can just go crazy, but you can't really predict it. It's really funny.
No.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't care as much about the numbers.
No.
The numbers do help build the channel. But, I did pay attention to another YouTuber that was talking about how to build an audience. And one of the things that he said that really hit me was, your audience are really the people that are going to come back because they're interested in your topic.
Yeah.
You're not interested in the people that are looking for cats playing the piano or naked ladies or something.
For sure.
You're looking for people that are really, in my case, interested in trees or tree care.
Yeah.
And that really is only 1% of the population.
Oh, if that, yeah. It's very, very small, yeah.
Everybody says they like trees, but you say, okay, what kind of tree is that?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll bet you your kids know trees.
Yeah. My daughter can pick out a white pine from a distance, yeah. I do. Good. I love doing that. Yeah, it is funny. Yeah,
I have.
Go ahead.
I have 7 children, and every one of them is pretty good on trees. I spent my whole life saying, "What's that? What's that?" A lot of eye rolling from the back seat of the car as we drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially from my wife.
Definitely. All right, why don't we talk about your backstory? So I was reading a little bit. You had some stories on your tree service website there. Why don't you tell us how you got into tree climbing and tree work in the first place?
Well, if we're going to go way back, it probably goes back to high school days when I was on the bad number list to go to Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And my senior year in high school, that's all I could think about. And 1972, they abolished the draft.
Yeah.
Huge weight was lifted off my shoulder. I was into rock climbing in a big way. Mm-hmm. And so I took a year off and moved to Yosemite and lived in a tent and worked search and rescue.
Wow.
And did a lot of the big walls in Yosemite. I've been up on El Cap 4 times and
nice.
Only finished it once, but that was one of the big feathers in my cap.
Yeah.
But that really led me to realize that I could never hold down an indoor job. Mm-hmm. You know, I've got to be outside.
Yeah.
You know, both for physical reasons and just I get claustrophobic working indoors. You know, one of my least favorite parts of my business is working in the office. I can only handle that for about an hour at a time, and I got to get out.
Yeah.
So through my rock climbing experience, in 1973, I teamed up with a buddy of mine. And back then it was, you know, we bought a big truck. It didn't even have a dump on it. Mm-hmm. It was a 1956 GMC with 4-foot sides.
Nice.
And we just went to work. You know, we pretty much would do anything. And, you know, if we got a tree job, that was great. Somebody asked us if we could break out concrete. Mm-hmm. We just did it. You know, it was go to work.
Yeah.
Fuel was less than 30 cents a gallon back then. It only cost me $4 to dump a load, and you know, it was pretty amazing. But then again, the cost of living was really low, and you know, back then minimum wage was only $1.35 an hour.
Now, is that California still where you're talking?
That's California.
Yeah,
California.
Okay.
I was born in California.
Okay.
So I have no knowledge of the kind of weather you're experiencing right now. Yeah, it's a real cold 42 degrees out right now.
Oh yeah.
You're probably below zero.
Well, yeah, we're in Celsius, so we're about -10 Celsius.
Oh God!
So I'm not sure what that's in Fahrenheit, but it's pretty cold.
Yeah, really cold. But in any case, so I started my business with this buddy of mine, and he was a really hard worker. We were both hustlers. We took out, you know, a couple of ads in some of the penny saver type magazines, and we knocked on doors every day. If we didn't have a job, we still went out.
Yeah.
And I think the first big break for us was I met a realtor who had lots of rental properties. And he said, "Hey, I need to clean up because people were moving in and moving out." So we got at least 1 to 2 jobs a week from this one realtor, and that was enough to, you know, just keep us going.
Yeah.
And you know, so it took a couple of years before, you know, we were pretty consistent. You know, there was a lot of days we'd get in the truck and go out and, okay, what are we going to do? Well, let's start off with breakfast.
Yeah.
But, you know, we'd knock on doors, we'd drive around, and with trees, it was easy to spot dead trees.
Yeah.
Or a big stump. You know, we dug out stumps. Oh my God, we dug out so many stumps. You know, we didn't have a stump grinder, but you know, we'd wrap a chain around the front of that big old truck and pop them out of the ground. And
nice.
We made money. We really did well.
Yeah.
But I didn't really get serious about becoming certified. Well, this whole certification process didn't come about till the mid '80s.
Yep.
Back then, you know, there was really no professionalism, and honestly, everybody spurred everything. You know, topping was the way. You know, the old guys that I learned from, you know, they did everything wrong.
Yeah,
that's the way it was.
Yeah, for sure.
And the industry really didn't evolve properly until about you know, it started about the '80s, and then it evolved. And then when the certification process came about, I was one of the early ISA certified arborists. My number is 654.
Nice.
So I was in the first, I think it was like a year after they opened the process.
Yep.
And when you get your certification, that's like a badge of honor that tells you, okay, from now on, you're not going to make any mistakes. Yeah. You can't top trees anymore unless it's under the wires, or you're doing it to save the tree or the top blew out. You've got to do things right.
Yeah.
And that was a game changer for me. I took it serious, and a big part of the certification process is you've got to maintain your credits, your units. You've got to keep up going to conferences, and in doing so you meet everybody. I don't know what it's like up in Canada. What kind of a program do you have?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yep, it's standardized.
Okay.
Yep. So you had mentioned the old guys that you had learned from. So who did you learn the trade from?
The first guy that took me under his wing was an old guy by the name of Dick Taylor. Mm-hmm. I can talk about Dick Taylor because he's long gone, but he was an interesting guy. He was in his 60s. I met him when I was about 20.
Wow.
And he was at a point where he was still getting all these tree jobs, but getting a little old to do them himself. So he needed a couple of young bucks to make his money. And so he called on us and said, "Hey, I've got a job." And for some reason, he always made more on the job than we did. But we did all the work.
Yeah.
So he got the nickname of Dirty Dick. And, Dirty Dick was kind of corrupt. He had a pest control business at the time, and when I was a young man, he said, "I'm going to teach you the pest control business." He says, "Every house needs to be sprayed. You got to scare the women. You got to tell them, spiders. We'll spray under the house and get rid of all those spiders.
Yeah.
And always say black widows, and always, really talk it up."
Yeah.
He says every single tree needs to be sprayed. And as a young guy, I think, really, okay, and it didn't take me too long to realize, all right, this guy's a con man. But then I started looking around, and I realized that there were a lot of corrupt spray companies and tree companies around. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of real dishonest people that that prey on older clients or will tell people things that they don't really need.
Yeah.
And
for sure. I've worked with a couple tree guys who would use fear as the motivating factor, to sell a job. Base it all, like this tree is going to fall over and crush your house, and it always rubbed me the wrong way. I would never do that to someone.
Unless it's true.
Unless it's true, exactly. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's like the old person that's afraid of their tree because it's too tall.
Yeah.
My tree is too tall. Well, I'll make it safe. I'll cut it in half.
Yeah. We dealt with one of those not even a month ago. There's a guy who lives beside one of the cemeteries that we take care of, and I think he's 94 years old, and he's got a sunroom in the back of the house, and all he does all day long is sit in the sunroom, and he looks up at these big old spruce trees that are on the other side of the fence, and he just comes up with scenarios where these spruce trees come over and kill him or something. And he was bothering the manager there at the cemetery, and they wanted us to go up these 90-foot spruce trees and take 6 feet out of the top to make them safe for this guy. We had an interesting back and forth about why that was a ridiculous idea. But,
that's one of the hard parts of our business is educating people, especially older people that have spent their entire lives seeing improper tree work, believing that was the right thing to do.
Yes, definitely.
You can't retrain some people.
Yeah.
Which is a big part of my video channel. Mm-hmm. I really love to dissect trees.
Yeah.
When you get a big rotten tree and you cut off old wounds, or you cut into the rotten spots, and you rip through the log to see how far the decay goes, because that gives my clients answers. I say, look at how bad that really is, or this is what happened because somebody topped the tree, or because somebody made a flush cut.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how Alex Shigo did all of his codit work, right? He would take down trees.
Yes.
Well,
Yes,
he would make cuts.
You're too young to have met him, I'm sure.
I am. Did you meet him?
Many times.
Oh, nice.
Times. Yeah, he was. I had the honor of having lunch with him a few times.
Oh, wow.
And had some private talks with him. He was not only really knowledgeable and really skillful, he was really passionate.
Yes.
And when he had a crowd, he would walk around on the stage, up in front of everybody, and his exuberance, just excited everybody in the crowd.
Oh, wow.
And and here he'd be talking about really boring things like decay and and walls and coated and all this stuff, but he would make it interesting.
Oh, wow.
He would just get the whole crowd amped up.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time in Monterey, he was at a conference, and he was so amped up, he was walking around and he fell off the stage into the audience. He hurt himself.
Oh.
He hurt himself, but he got back up on the stage and he finished the conference in a chair.
Oh, that's too funny. I've never heard that he was a showman. That's really interesting.
He was. I don't know if showman's the right word, but it was his enthusiasm in the way he spoke, and he was a really loud voice. He didn't talk under his, he didn't talk quietly like a lot of professionals do. I've seen so many top arborists and academia talk about subjects, and I'd say about half of them you're ready to fall asleep.
Yeah, for sure.
No. How about Dr. Richard Harris? Have you read any of his books?
No, I haven't.
Probably the best one to get. It's a really old one. It's just called Arboriculture.
Okay.
And he really was the godfather of our industry, even before Alex Shigo.
Oh, really?
So you really ought to find some of his old works. And
okay.
He wasn't quite as exuberant a speaker, but he was very well versed in all aspects of tree care, including what's going on with the trees. But he spent a lot of his time talking about proper ways of cabling, proper ways of dealing with underground things, and the whole gambit.
Okay.
So
would that have been in the 60s?
Well, he was. Let's see. I think he died in the early 90s, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. But he was really active right up until he passed away. I've seen him speak many times as well.
Okay. Was he like a university professor?
Oh yeah. Dr. Richard Harris.
Okay.
Look him up.
I will do that. Okay, so you were talking about your tree service. So it's called Saratoga Tree Service, right?
Saratoga Tree Service. Yes, I started that business back before there was an internet. Yep. And I had no idea how valuable it would be to have a name that kind of located, or people would type in on the search engine. So people type in tree service Saratoga, and there I am. Yeah,
really. So you started that in 1973, you said?
1973. This is 46 years I've been doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm a small company right now. I'm kind of in my slow down years. Mm-hmm. I still enjoy it. My son works for me.
Oh, nice.
He's 38. He's about your age.
Yep.
I don't know if he wants to take over the business or not, but he's a really, really talented climber and really strong, really skillful. But he's also a player. He likes to ski and surf and skateboard and everything else.
So you started off with the GMC. How did it evolve from there? Like in the early 80s and 90s.
Let's see. The very first truck that I got that dumped was a 1949 Dodge.
Nice.
And the very first chipper that I got was one of the original 500 chippers ever built.
Really?
It was an Asplund. It was one of those Chuck and Duck.
The
old 16-inch, super dangerous. Had a Ford Industrial 300 motor on it. It was a 1955.
Wow.
And I had a truck that dumped and a chipper that took brush, and it just changed my life.
Oh, I bet.
Because I spent quite a few years loading up that brush truck and taking it to the dump, and I learned how to slam dump. You open the back and go at high speed, hit the brakes, and the whole load moves back about 6 inches.
Yep.
You do it again, and you've got it back a foot.
Yeah.
Eventually, it falls out.
Yeah, that's right.
So I spent a lot of money on brakes.
Yeah.
But it was good. I've had a lot of old trucks, and the first truck that I got that dumped, it didn't last very long. That 1949, and then I upgraded to a 1960 Ford cab over that had a dump, and that was probably the beginning of me becoming more successful.
Yeah.
Because I had a reliable piece of machinery to work with.
Yeah.
Didn't keep breaking down.
You said that you had started the business with one of your friends. Did he stick around?
Yeah, a good friend of mine. Yeah, a good friend of mine named Paul. We started it together, and we had a partnership for about 3 years. And I kept going, towards the tree part of it, and he was more, let's do this job, let's do that job. He'd find other types of work, and his passion really was carpentry.
Okay.
He'd come along and say, "Hey, I got a job to build a fence." And I'd say, "Well, I don't want to build a fence," but so I wanted to do the tree work, So eventually, he decided to move up north, and I took over the company, and it was solely mine from then on out.
What year would that? Or sorry, that would make it 1976.
Well, we started together in '73, so it was probably 76 that it was just all me.
Okay.
But those first years of learning business, regardless of what you're doing, because it's all about people. You learn how to, first off, you've got to convince your clients that you're going to do a good job and that you're honorable and trustworthy.
Yeah.
And that usually takes place in the first few minutes of meeting them. The estimate, you walk around, the time that you spend talking to somebody, they make an opinion about you at those initial moments.
Definitely.
So learning how to comfortably just talk to people, that was probably one of the most important things about any service business. But that's what got us to a point where we started consistently getting, the jobs.
Yeah.
And I made a lot of bad bids. I've done jobs for next to nothing.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
They dragged on for days.
Does that come naturally to you, like meeting new people and speaking?
Now it does.
Now it does.
It's like anything else. I don't call myself a salesman because if you're a salesman, you've got kind of an agenda and you go at it. I really try to befriend people. I try to be relaxed and comfortable. I always ask, one of the first questions I always ask is how did you hear about me?
Yeah.
And if obviously, a lot of my work are past clients, but if they were referred by one of my clients and I can remember who they were, then, I always strike up a conversation about so-and-so and what I did for them. And I try to break the ice a little bit. Now there's a new business called Next Door. I don't know if you've got that up there or not. It's a referral service.
Okay.
It's kind of like Yelp, but it's run by the people. So if I've got a really high rating in this Next Door website, and lots and lots of people now are calling me for that, which is kind of bad for me because if they're old clients or referrals, I get 80 to 90% of the jobs.
Yeah.
If it's Next Door, these are people that are shopping for bids.
For sure. It's a lot of tire kickers.
Yeah. And that's one of the hardest things about my business, when I get people that are looking for the lowest price, and that's all they want.
Oh, yes.
So I learn pretty fast, when I'm running bids, who to just kind of process through.
Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes you get a feeling.
Yeah.
How many times have you been on a bid and the first thing you told yourself was, I don't want to work for this person?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It happens all the time. Yeah. I mean,
and then you bid it really high and you still get the job.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a problem that definitely affects everyone in this trade. I mean, there's so much, like tree work has been so commoditized at this point that you do have so many people who just want the lowest price. Do you have like how do you differentiate yourself and your business to get people to see that maybe it's about more than just the lowest price? Do you have any specific advice or techniques?
Having referrals, where people were happy with you is really important. Mm-hmm. But the educational part of it, I do use my YouTube channel on most of my bids.
Okay.
I tell people about my YouTube channel. I say, you can find me on the web. I've got a big web presence, which kind of gives people a little bit of insight into what you do and how you do things. And honestly, if it's somebody that just says, I don't like this tree, it's too tall, cut it in half, mm-hmm. I respectfully decline it.
Yeah.
If it goes against what I believe is ethically correct, mm-hmm. I won't do the job.
Yeah.
Now, there's always exceptions, and that's one of the hard things, because in our industry, as you know, it's not black and white. Mm-hmm. You've got trees that the top blew out in a storm, and you've got to go up and cut it down below the decay.
Yeah.
Even though it's not good for the tree to top it down, it's better than leaving it the way it is.
Yeah.
So you end up doing a bad job, and then somebody comes along and says, "Who the hell butchered that tree?"
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Do you guys have any sort of bylaws there that apply to trees and tree work?
Yes. I don't know what it's like in your part of the world, but where I'm at, every single city requires permits for removing trees.
Okay.
And most of the sizes are around a 12-inch diameter trunk.
Okay.
And in some areas, like Saratoga, they are very anal about protecting the oak trees. So mm-hmm. A 3-inch or a 4-inch diameter trunk on an oak tree requires a permit.
Oh, wow.
Which is really stupid.
That's
because
crazy.
I've got these little old ladies that have a whole yard full of squirrel planted trees that
yeah.
And they have to go through the city, and you got to pay for the permit.
Yeah.
You got to get the city arborist out to okay it.
Mm-hmm.
I write a lot of arborist reports to help people get rid of trees. I've got to identify the problems, and sometimes they get declined.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Here where I am in the city of London, we just got a bylaw, I think it was 3 years ago, and initially my thought was like I hated the idea. I really pushed back against it, but I've sort of warmed up to it over the past year. I do love the fact that it gives me a really solid excuse when people ask me to do dumb stuff that is clearly not good for their trees. I can just say, well, I'll get a fine under the bylaw, so I'm just not going to do that. It's easier, it's easier for me to say that than it is to go into the science of why this is really bad for your tree. You know what I mean? So it has helped us in terms of trimming, because we are a trimming business anyway. We always focused from day one on trimming. And we only...
You don't do a lot of removals?
Well, I mean, we do to pay the bills. We have to, you know what I mean? But like it is the bylaw is mainly focused on removing trees. So they started off, our bylaw started off at around 20 inches diameter, but they're trying to get it cut in half right now, I think, to make it cover much smaller trees. But
we also have an ordinance that stipulates that you're not allowed to take off more than 25% of the foliage of a tree.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a weird way, because, a lot of tree companies will go up and top the trees and say, well, I didn't take off more than 25%.
Yeah.
And then you say, well, yeah, but you screwed up the tree. So now some of the cities are requiring that a certified arborist be on staff to authorize a business license.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Which I see both sides of it. It's like it's not really fair to some companies that are doing good work, but don't take that extra step.
Yeah.
But it is a way of at least finding people that are more professional.
Yeah, for sure.
What is it in your area? Do you have a lot of hack and slash tree services that just go around ruining everything. And
oh yeah, it's unregulated. I mean, it is regulated, but it's called an unrestricted trade. So it's something that you can go to school and get certified in, but you also don't need any schooling to do it. You know what I mean? So
right.
So it's been an interesting thing here. Regarding like you were saying, they have specific things like saying that you can't take 25%. The bylaw here in London is very open-ended. It just says like your work must abide by current arboricultural standards. You know what I mean? And then they don't even they don't define that at all. So
right.
I don't know.
Right.
It's interesting. I see both sides of it for sure, but.
Yeah, we have a lot of that, but the enforcement is really difficult. And
it is, yeah.
I would say that better than 50 to 60% of the tree companies in the Bay Area where I work, I'm in, most of my work is in Silicon Valley area.
Okay.
And the outlying hills, Saratoga, Los Gatos, Montessorino. There's a lot of big estate properties, a lot of money. There's a lot of people that are highly educated that want to spend the money to take care of their trees correctly. So that is kind of a niche that I've worked myself into. Yeah. And because I'm dealing with a lot of people that, well, first off, the property values are so incredibly high around here. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can, tear downs, 1,500 foot tear down in San Jose will run you $800 to $1 million.
Wow.
For just a little chunky piece of property. Yeah. And that's because of the industry here. We've got, Apple is situated here in Cupertino, and Google and PayPal and all these big companies that pay people so much money. Yeah. And they're bringing them in from all over the world. Yeah. That the value of homes is through the roof.
Absolutely.
My house, where I live on 20 acres up in the mountains above the valley. Okay. And I've been here for 23 years, and I paid $340,000, and now Zillow says it's worth $3.5 million. I don't want to sell it. It's paid for. It's my home.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
But that's the point that I'm getting to is that has created a essence of value on the property, which includes the trees. Yes. Because so many of these homes are so tightly packed together. Yeah. Almost every house has a fence around it. Yeah. In the backyard. Mm-hmm. And most people have trees growing right up to the fence or bushes or something to give them their little postage stamp property sense of privacy. Mm-hmm. And then the neighbors do the same thing, and the trees all grow together. And, it's kind of a mess, actually. Yeah. But that valuation makes people feel like that they have to take better care of their investment.
Definitely.
Which includes the trees.
Definitely. So you make a point then of leveraging your expertise on your YouTube channel. You make a point of using that to help sell these people on taking care of the trees.
I'm almost always talking about my internet presence and my YouTube channel to my clients. Okay. Not to impress them, but to let them know that there's more that they can find out about me. Okay, I see. Because the unique thing about having a YouTube channel or some sort of a sense of a way for people to learn more about you. Mm-hmm. Like, before you have an internet presence as a YouTube channel or in your case a podcast, people find you through either your advertising, word of mouth, or maybe you have a website. Yeah. But that doesn't really give them a whole lot more than, look at me, this is what we charge, these are my services, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. Whereas, I emphasize proper tree care in my YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And if it's something different, I try to explain why. Mm-hmm. And because I'm so busy and because I have such a backlog of work, I have the luxury of not feeling like I've got to take any job just to stay busy. Yeah. Which leads to, I really fall back on the integrity of what is proper, what is right. Yeah. And so I'm an educator first. Mm-hmm. And if a client doesn't need anything, I tell them.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's definitely the position that you want to be in, right? Not having to take the jobs that you don't want to do.
It seems like when you tell it, if you go into a bid and you get some old person that says, well, it's time to take care of my trees, and you walk around with them for a half an hour and you look at every single tree and say, well, there's a little bit of deadwood there and there's a few cuts over here, but your trees are looking pretty good. Everything is really safe.
Yeah.
Why don't you put it off for a couple, 2 or 3 years and save your money?
Yeah, for sure.
And the customer looks at you, and you've got a customer for life that tells all their friends.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because honesty and integrity really goes a long way in our business.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so getting back to Saratoga Tree Service, so how did you, over time, how did you transition from being the guy who has to physically do all the tree work? How did you transition to, to being one level above that and dealing with the customers and having employees?
Well, as you know, you wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how big your company is. How many guys do you have?
I have two employees.
2?
Yeah.
I have 3 guys in the field, and I've got another certified arborist, Lucy Lieberg, has been with me for 30 years, mm-hmm. and the 2 of us run the company together.
Okay.
And sometimes she runs bids, sometimes I run bids, but both of us are out working a lot. Mm-hmm. We both go out and do whatever it takes. She's more walking the complexes and looking at the trees, which is a lot of work, especially when a big part of my work are condominium complexes.
Okay.
And you might have 500 or 600 trees to look at.
Yeah.
And to build a bid like that sometimes takes 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
So she concentrates on that, where my concentration are the higher end complexes, or not complexes, but estate properties and homeowners and and old customers, people that remember me. So I'm 65 now, and I put in 1 or 2 days a week, working with the crew, but it's always an hour here, an hour there, as well as me taking a long, hard day that I'm thankful for a hot tub at the end of the day. But, I like staying in shape. I can't just be the guy that talks about trees. I got to work on trees.
For sure.
So that transitional part, I think a lot of companies, owners and higher ups never do the tree work anymore. And I think that if you get out of touch, if you don't climb the trees, you're out of touch. You really don't know what a safe tree is, or what a tree that's ready to break is. You're guessing.
Yeah. When
you're up in the trees, you learn. You know which species are safer, which
for sure.
Which branches are ready to break, and you have a sense for it.
For sure.
And that goes a long ways. If you want to talk about something, you've got to really know what you're talking about.
Definitely. Now, you had mentioned that your son works with you. So how did that come about?
Yes, Kalen. Kalen and I have been rock climbing together since he was very, very young. I started him out as a child, and I actually took him up his first big wall in Yosemite when he was 14 years old. We climbed the east buttress of Middle Cathedral Rock, which it's a one-day climb, but it was about a 1,800-foot face.
Wow. And
he has carried on with a real love of rock climbing. He's 38 now, and he's an amazing rock climber. Mm-hmm. And he graduated from college with a business degree, and he tried a whole bunch of different businesses. But he's kind of like me. He's an adrenaline junkie, and he's worked for me on and off since he was young. Summers and day here and a day there, but he's worked for me consistently now for the last 7 years full time.
Yeah,
and it's great. I love working with my son. It takes on a different dynamic. It's not like father-son anymore. It's like two people that have known each other forever.
Yeah.
It's not always easy. There's always that friction. Mm-hmm. Father knows best, and son's not going to do it my way.
Yeah. Yeah. You had mentioned that you weren't sure if he was going to take over the family business.
I don't know. He'll probably listen to this podcast and say, I don't know either. Business is hard.
It is.
If all you had to do is trim trees, it would be, I think it would be really fun.
Yeah.
But, dealing with payroll, dealing with insurance, dealing with the government, dealing with, workers' comp, the contractor's license, bonding, insurance, all the different city regulations, all that BS. It's not fun.
No, it's
not fun at all.
No, it's not. Not at all. Now, I was reading on your website, you talked about you do quite a bit of woodworking. You sell veneers and different woodworking
I do.
projects.
I've got a passion for woodworking. I've got a beautiful shop. I've gotten into milling. I've been milling my whole entire life, actually. I started off with an Alaskan chainsaw mill when I was young, and I had a little piece of property up north and milled up a bunch of wood and built a little cabin up there.
Nice.
Carried on. I've been into building furniture, which led me to purchasing a Wood Miser bandsaw mill.
Nice.
I had that for about 15 years. And so I milled up a lot of hardwoods. And I actually, for about 10 years, I had a business that I ran my tree service out of, which was really the bread and butter. Mm-hmm. But I stored lumber in a warehouse and stocked up on veneer and tried doing them both.
Okay.
And that's hard. When you have two businesses running at the same time, they both kind of limp along. You have to focus on.
Yeah.
So I realized that I was making a mistake, and I got out of the lumber business, but I still have my passion for woodworking. Mm-hmm. I got a beautiful shop.
Yeah.
I've got a 20 by 22 foot shop with a 14-foot ceiling up here on Santa Cruz Mountains, and
nice.
I've got all the tools I could ever need, and go out there on a rainy day, sometimes on the weekend, and build a piece of furniture, and that, especially if it's from a tree that you cut down and you know where it came from.
Yeah.
I find great joy in that.
How did you learn that?
Well, my grandfather was a carpenter. I had an uncle who was a carpenter, and a lot of it is self-taught. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, tree work. If you have a passion for something, you seek out others who know the business or the craft.
Yeah. And
you start learning it. And I'm pretty much self-taught in the higher end woodworking side of it. Mm-hmm. I've attended so many conferences and gone to so many classes, and I've had mentors. I had one guy that shared my lumber yard for a long, long time, who was a master craftsman. He was one of the finest furniture builders I've ever met. His name is John Burt, and I've got a few good videos in my collection of John Burt.
Okay.
But having somebody like that there all the time, you've got somebody that you can watch and learn from, and so he became a real big mentor in my life. Mm-hmm. Do you do any woodworking?
I have not really got into it. One of my best friends, Alex, he got into he bought an Alaskan mill a couple of years ago now, and he's done a bunch of slabs, and he's loving just trying to figure out how to dry slabs without them cracking, and what you can make different projects. It's
fun.
fascinating. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. All right. So one thing I wanted to ask you, you've obviously seen, a lot of changes over the years in the industry, new techniques and equipment. So what are some of the things that have had the biggest impact on how we do tree work, in your opinion, over the years?
For me, going back, probably the biggest improvement that I remember really distinctly was when they had the self-feeding chipper come along.
Yeah.
Because I learned with I call them the chuck and duck, the drum chippers,
yeah.
which were so incredibly dangerous.
Oh, yes.
If you've never used one of those things, imagine spearing brush into it and spinning out of the way and putting your arms around your head so you don't get hit by a pine cone.
Yeah.
Because it just throws stuff through it at such a high velocity that it's So when these self-feeding chippers came along, I was kind of slow to adapt.
Yeah.
Then when I got my first one, I almost immediately bought a second one, and then a couple of years later a third one. And I've still got an old Asplund that I never use anymore.
Yeah. I think it was the first time I used a chuck and duck. I was up in the bucket cutting down a dead sugar maple, and I was watching these guys take these stone dead branches and try and throw them into the chuck and duck, and at least half of what they threw in would come flying right back at them.
Oh God, they're so dangerous.
Super dangerous.
So dangerous.
Oh, crazy.
Let's see, other advancements. There's so many changes in the industry, and a lot of them, I've watched your channel, and I'm really admiring a lot of like the SRT climbing techniques and a lot of the new ways of getting around in the trees, and some of the ways that you tie off, the spider, I forget what you call them, the spider link,
spider leg.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I should. I'm really stuck, and I wish I had learned from somebody who showed me more variety of techniques.
Yeah.
But the longer you do something, the more set in your ways you become.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I am fast, and my guys, we're all fast. We get the work done safe.
Yeah.
We don't screw up. But there's always people that'll come along and say, "Oh, you're doing that wrong." Why aren't you using a cambium saber? Why aren't you using a cambium saber?
Yeah.
Well, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Most of the time, in fairness, we don't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
We get to work. We don't damage the trees. We don't rip out of the trees that would burn the bark. We do what we've been doing forever, and I guess part of the problem I see is a lot of the young climbers are learning all the new techniques without understanding some of the old techniques.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Yeah.
Rock climbing is the same way. When I learned how to climb, my rock climbing skills, the technology and the tools that we used back in the 60s and 70s are so antiquated and outdated that nobody uses that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
There's new ways of attaching yourself to the rock that are fast and clean and simple, and so people are climbing so much faster, and that's great. I mean, they're really, really big advancements, but it's like, what did it take to get there?
Definitely.
There's like a transition, step A, step B, step C. And a lot of people are stepping into the tree industry at step, E, F, G, without going back and learning A, B, C.
Absolutely. I feel the exact same way. Like, you really need to know why we are at this advanced point now. Like, you need to understand how we got here. You know what I mean? You shouldn't just step in and learn, like, this is how we do this in 2019, and just think like, oh, well, this is how we do it. There's a reason. There's such a progression, right? It's super important to learn. Like, when I was getting into the trade, the guy that I was learning from, he had been trained by an older guy, so it was as if I was being trained by this other guy who had been doing it 20, 30 years earlier. You know what I mean? So like I learned all of the old techniques. Like, I natural crotch rigging for 3 years. Like, I didn't touch a block. You know what I mean? And just the creativity that goes along with natural crotch rigging exclusively. You know what I mean? It's even just to start with that. Like, there's a reason that
there are a lot of really, really good lowering devices out there,
yeah.
And we use a lot of them. I've got another device that I'm starting to play with. I've got a friend from the Midwest who's developed this aluminum lowering block that is primarily useful in a bucket.
Okay.
But what it enables you to do is go up to a branch and rig a crotch or a lowering spot anywhere you want to, that you can actually manage from the bucket, which means you got to do one-hand cutting, and let's not get into that discussion because everybody in the world is going to poo-poo you, but every qualified professional out there knows how to manage a chainsaw safely. We'll get blasted for that one with one hand. And,
yes, we will.
and either manage the rope or manage the branch or make the cut and grab. There's skills. And for the layperson to do something like that is stupid.
Yes, it is.
It's but there are lots of new tools out there that make things safer, but also in some cases more complicated.
I do love I love the progression towards aerial friction, whether it's rings or safe block, and then there's other devices such as the one that you're talking about.
I share your videos with my guys.
Oh, nice.
And
cool.
and a lot of times I say, I want you to try it this way. But my guys are kind of they're all kind of hard, except for Kalen. Kalen is the youngest guy in my crew.
Yeah.
And he's more open to new techniques. Whereas I've got two guys who've been both with me over 20 years, and they're very smart. They're very intelligent. They do things safely. They get it done. But they always fall back to what they're used to.
For sure. Yeah.
If I give them a new tool or a new toy or a new anything, unless it's a new rope, they always love a new rope. But it's like, okay, learn this. Yeah. And they're really slow to adapt.
It's just a mindset thing, right? You're either progressive and looking for new advancements, or you just shut your mind off and say, well, I know how to do this, so that's good, And
I can see that you're very progressive.
Well, and, I wasn't always though. Like I say, my first 3 years during my apprenticeship was not progressive at all. It was just learning the basics and learning the old school ways of doing it. And then probably the next, 5 to 6 years, I wasn't very progressive at all. I mean, I experimented with certain things. I got like a leather cambium saver, which made a huge difference. I love that, still do. And I started experimenting with blocks and pulleys, but I wasn't. I was definitely not very progressive at all. Actually, for me personally, what spurred on being like trying to figure out all the new stuff was when I signed on my apprentice James. That was a really big light bulb moment for me, where I was stuck in the middle. Like I'm trained in old school. But I have this guy, I think he was 22 when he signed on. So
the teacher's got to learn how to teach right, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I was really in a tough spot. So I really took it upon myself to try and just change that and be progressive as much as possible with with giving him a solid grounding in the old basics, right? So it's a really interesting mix for me. I've really had a lot of fun with it. I've told him that before. That was probably the best thing that ever happened to me was signing an apprentice at that moment. And
is he still with you?
He is, yeah. He's in school right now. He's finishing up his second term of school. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
It's always fun to take on some young guy who is open to learning and really finds the passion.
Yeah.
It's hard when you find somebody and it's just a job. You get some guy. It's like, okay, I start everybody out on the ground.
Yeah.
Because if you don't learn how to do everything on the ground, you don't know how important that ground guy is when you're up in the tree.
Definitely.
And if there's any of the listeners out there that are groundsmen, man, I have so much respect for my grounds people.
Definitely.
And one thing that I push really hard is when you get down out of the tree, you don't go over and take a coffee break and sit down and relax. Yeah. Unless you're really tired, of course. But you get in there and you help those groundsmen.
Yeah, for sure.
You show them that what they're doing, is not beneath you because, they're the ones that are going to keep you safe.
Yeah, for sure.
Here's another thing. I've had climbers that had an attitude. They were so fast and so cocky that they would bury the grounds guys.
Yeah.
they would cut and cut and cut and cut, and the guys would all just stand back and say, "I'm not getting close to that guy. He's an idiot."
Yep.
And then guy'd get down on the ground and beat his chest and show everybody how macho and fast he is.
Yeah.
And laugh at the groundsman.
Mm-hmm.
There is a hierarchy that when a climber crosses over into that level of being too macho or too arrogant, everybody loses respect for him.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a team.
Definitely.
It's a team.
Absolutely.
And the lowest guy on the team is just as important as the top climber.
Absolutely. We're all on the same team, right?
That's right.
You got to work together. Yeah.
That's why hard hats are important.
Well, speaking about apprenticeship, have you, like, over the years, have you made that one of your core things to take on new guys and train new people?
Oh gosh, I've trained so many people.
Mm-hmm.
I would say about 10 of my competitors are people that used to work for me.
Okay.
Which is good and bad, but
that's part of it. Yeah.
I've had other apprenticeships where I've had people come in from Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some programs in the UK where you can do a work for credit program through the tree care industry over there.
Oh, okay.
And I've done that 3 times, and that was fun. That was really fun because you take, just like you with James, you feel like you've got an obligation to meet the criteria of what this person needs to learn.
Yeah, for sure.
So instead of just being the boss and let's go get this job done, you put on your teacher's hat at the same time. It's like, okay, every day I got to show this person something new, which is kind of what I'm doing now with my YouTube channel. I'm trying to show people things that they wouldn't necessarily see that often.
Mm-hmm.
If I run into an unusual fungus or an unusual decay problem or a tree that is recognized as a species that is particularly sensitive to decay, like silver maples. Yeah. You got silver maples in your part of the world?
Oh, do we ever?
Oh my God, those things they fall apart.
Brutal, yeah.
And a lot of climbers don't recognize just how potentially dangerous they can be.
Yeah.
So I show a lot of that kind of stuff
mm-hmm.
because I don't really have somebody up and coming in the company.
Okay.
At 65, I'm going towards the end of my career. How many more years have I got?
Yeah.
Hopefully at least 10.
Do you see yourself retiring, or is that just crazy, the idea that you wouldn't
not
work
retiring,
anymore?
Not retiring,
mm-hmm.
Changing.
Yeah.
Changing. I do find myself doing a lot more consulting right now, and as you get older, you realize that your body doesn't meet the rigors of what it did even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I beat myself really hard my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of broken bones to show for it, and lots of injuries. And tree work is hard.
Yeah.
How many times you hurt yourself?
Yeah. Make no mistake. It's
Well,
tough when you do it for a long
stuff
time.
happens. In our business, stories are really good. You've probably got a lot of stories too, but times that something happened that you could not perceive was going to happen.
Yeah.
For instance, I remember one time I was taking down this big tree, and I was way up high, and I threw a piece of firewood down,
mm-hmm.
and it hit a teeter-totter that had a piece of firewood on the backside of it that I couldn't have imagined.
Wow.
Teeter-totter piece of brush.
Yeah.
And I hit the high side of it, and a piece of firewood went flying past my head and landed in the neighbor's yard. It's like, that could have killed me.
Yep.
Yeah. So there are always those incidents of things that can happen.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
one of the things that I really try to emphasize with my crew is don't be in such a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
Slow down. Always do a walk around the tree.
Mm-hmm.
Thump the tree. Check the ground. You see any mushrooms? You see any decay?
Yeah.
Don't just run up that tree.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I feel like a lot of that attitude of just go as fast as you can, it really stems from the fact that most people doing tree work aren't able to charge enough. You know what I mean? So we're always trying to squeeze an extra job in, which means we're always going full speed. You know what I mean?
You're always hustling. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And
but you got to slow down because
yeah.
One screw up and you either injure yourself for a long time and then you're not making anything.
That's right.
Or there goes the main provider of your family.
Exactly.
Tree work is dangerous.
Exactly.
And in my years, I have almost lost my life at least a dozen times.
Mm-hmm.
If we had a session of storytelling, I could go on and on and on of things that have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And most often they're things that you just do not predict. You just don't imagine it happening.
Yeah.
I was a good one that happened to me one time was I was working on taking down a giant eucalyptus tree, and there was a driveway that was a hill that went up.
Mm-hmm. And
I had an old logger that was working for me at the time, and this is the first time I ever encountered using a big hydraulic jack to jack over a tree that was leaning the wrong way.
Okay.
And he convinced me that he knew how to do it, so we put a rope on the top of the tree, and I was pulling on the rope while he was jacking this thing up and over.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly I realized that, oh my God, that tree is a lot taller than I thought as it was falling towards me.
Yeah.
And my reaction was, to run, and I only had one direction to run. And so I ran at high speed right into the course of an oncoming car.
Oh, wow.
I ran out in the street, and there was a car. He locked up his brakes. The tree crashed down next to me.
Oh, wow.
I hit the ground, and then I said a prayer. I thanked God that very moment that I was still here because it happened so fast.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of it. I didn't perceive it to happen. Some of it was because it was something that I wasn't used to, something I'd never done before.
Yeah.
And what he did worked. It worked great.
Yeah.
But I wasn't aware of it. I wasn't aware of exactly what was happening. So I put myself in a position that I shouldn't have been there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I had something similar happen to me. I used to, for the first few years in the trade, I used to really like if I'm the guy pulling on the rope, I used to like the big whoosh of air that would hit you when the tree hits the ground. You know what I mean? So I would stand closer than I should have just to get that whoosh of air. And one time we were working in the bush, and the tree was coming over, and I could tell it clearly wasn't going to hit me. And I was just standing there. I was going to get that whoosh of air, and I felt this in behind me. This other guy that I was working with, he grabbed me by the back of my sweater and he pulled me out of the way. And sure enough, as the tree came over, it hit a smaller tree and it snapped it in half, and it came down directly where I was standing. It would have just clobbered me. It would have been a bad day. And he just grabbed me and ripped me out of the way. So I don't do that anymore.
Well, it's important to have everybody on the crew really aware.
Oh, absolutely.
There have been a lot of times that I was about ready to make a cut where one of my groundsmen, who were also climbers,
mm-hmm.
Point out something to me and say, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
And I'd stop and I'd look up and maybe what I was roping off of had a crack or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, thank you, God.
Yeah.
You avoided something because somebody in the crew was more aware than you were at the moment, or saw something that you didn't see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so.
And the same breath, I can't tell you how many times I've saved one of my guys
mm-hmm.
from something stupid.
Yeah.
I'm usually a little bit more vocal about it. What the hell are you doing? Get out of that tree.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's so important that you hire people who actually are interested in the work, as opposed to just putting their head down and dragging the brush. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's like a major red flag for me. When I see that someone who has zero interest in it, they're just there to get a paycheck and then go home, and they have zero interest in trees. I can't stand that, because we are a team, and I need you to pull your weight, not just to move the brush, but to pay attention and know what's going on, for your safety and for mine and for everyone else's, right?
Right.
So that's...
I usually hire one new person a year, and it's usually a ground worker.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll hire a college student or a high school student in the summertime, if they show an interest. And the interest could be, hey, I really want to get in shape. I want to do a hard physical job.
Yeah.
And then you can plant the seed of interest.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you can take somebody that really isn't interested in trees, and after a few weeks or a few months, they'll come up to you and say, I didn't realize how much fun this was, or I really love this job.
Yeah.
And you know what? The crew weeds out the guys that shouldn't be there.
For sure.
If you got a new guy and they're not cutting it within a couple of days, the crew comes to you and complains about so-and-so, and okay, well, he's not working out.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's not about me hiring somebody new. It's about me bringing somebody in, and that person's got to be accepted and not be a burden.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I remember it was probably the third year of my apprenticeship. Norm hired this guy on the ground, and I definitely don't consider myself someone dangerous to work with, but I almost killed this guy 3 times because he just had zero sense of what was going on. I remember one time I was cutting down a peg. It was probably 30 feet tall, a big silver maple, and he walked directly underneath of it. I was halfway done my back cut just because he wouldn't pay attention. And I just sat him down, and we had this big, long discussion. And then I went to Norm, and I said, I explained it. You got to get rid of this guy because this is a major problem. You know what I mean?
He didn't look up before he ran in.
Oh, no, he didn't. He wasn't paying attention. He was off in his own world at all times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I had a similar story. I was taking down a giant uke. Do you have eucalyptus where you're at?
No.
Eucalyptus are like the biggest, baddest, toughest, heaviest, hardest trees you can imagine.
Yeah.
I have so much respect for those guys that work over in Australia that tackle these giants every single day. Mm-hmm. Well, California, we're riddled with millions of these giant trees, and they get big. Mm-hmm. Well, I had a job that it was a giant uke that had been topped repeatedly, and when you top a tree like that, it sends out these really tall shoots.
Yeah.
And the shoots that I was cutting out, I was bringing the whole tree down, but I was cutting the top pieces first. They were like 40 or 50 feet long and 6 inches in diameter. And what I was doing is I was cutting them at a really fast angle cut.
Yep.
So instead of them bending over, I was spearing them straight down into the ground.
Yep, definitely.
And I was up, 70, 80 feet. I was up pretty high. The tree was, well over 100 feet.
Yeah.
And I had a guy on the ground who was using that old chipper that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And they were chipping up the brush pile, and I could see them way off in the distance chipping. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, I'm going to get a few more down. Mm-hmm. And I should have just waited. It was my fault. Mm-hmm. But it was also his fault because he was cleaning up so fast. And I'm looking up, I'm paying attention to what I'm doing. I looked down the ground, everything was clear. I started my cut, and I was concentrating on the cut. Mm-hmm. And at the last minute, I looked down to see my friend running over to grab some more brush.
Yeah.
He didn't walk over. He ran over, so he got himself in the position.
Yeah.
So the chipper's running. He can't hear anything. I'm running with a saw. I'm screaming at him to look out, and I speared this thing down, and it missed him by 2 feet. It stuck in the ground. It would have killed him.
Oh, yeah. Mm.
I mean,
crazy.
That was my impatience. It was also his not looking up.
Yeah.
It was also poor communication. We should have had more of a discussion about, hey, if we're chipping, you don't do it. But that's where, you really got to have some, basic rules. Mm-hmm. Like what you said, somebody that climbs under or goes underneath a tree when the climber is working, it can't just be you've got to look up and make sure you're not going to get hit. Mm-hmm. It's got to be the climber making eye contact with the groundsperson.
Yeah. And
it can be as simple as a thumbs up or a nod to go ahead.
Yeah.
But without that one step, somebody's going to get hurt.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's vitally important that the people, everyone on the team, is all on the same page. It's because it's never, when an accident happens, it's never just one thing, and it's always a bunch of compounding factors that come together at the right time or the wrong time, I guess, to produce an accident. So,
have you ever been involved in a fatality?
I have not, no.
Do you know anybody in the tree business that's died?
Not personally, like to work with them. No, I've been very
had
lucky that way.
I've had a few incidents. I didn't know the guy that died, but I knew the company that lost somebody, and I was involved after the fact. And you know, when you think about why does somebody get killed in the tree industry, it's usually something really, really stupid. You know, there's high voltage situations. That's always pretty stupid. But you know, there was two particular fatalities that I didn't witness, but I came in after the fact. And the first one was a tree crew that got there early in the morning. It was cold. It was foggy. The owner was talking to the homeowner, and he told this guy, he says, you know, start off by getting that dead alder down over there. So he ran up an adjacent tree that was alive and stepped out of the live tree onto the dead tree, thinking he could just chunk it down. Disconnected his rope, brought it into the dead tree, and the tree snapped at the base. You know, so he got into this tree. It was about 60 feet high, and the tree rotated over. He hit his head on the ground. And my client, you know, had him die in her lap. You know, he just bled out. So I went in shortly after and cleaned up the mess, and she told me the story. And I looked at the whole thing, and I had to ask myself, why did this happen? It was because the climber was too fast. He was too arrogant. He was moving too quickly. And a lot of times it's that, I hate to use the word cocky, but there's a lot of cocky climbers out there that oftentimes get away with improper movements or improper procedures, or they'll take down a really dangerous tree that might not fall on them, and they don't learn. They don't learn that, you know, they shouldn't have been up there. The second bad fatality was another company that grew too fast, too big, too fast, and he hired a green grounds worker who was chipping. And believe it or not, this guy got up onto the back end, was pushing the stuff in with his feet, and slipped and fell, and the bar pulled his feet into it, and he pulled him right through the chipper.
Oh, brutal.
It was brutal, yes. And the guy that owned the company, he ended up going crazy. You know, he lost everything. You know, he couldn't handle it. You know, there was a big lawsuit involved, of course. And this guy who, you know, was on his way to being a very, very successful, you know, businessman is now living under a bridge.
Crazy. When it goes
sorry.
when it goes bad, it goes really bad, and it's happened so fast.
It can, but you know, it's important to tell these stories.
It is,
and
absolutely.
And when, you know, especially for a young guy, you know, if you say something as simple as, you know, if you don't wear your safety glasses, you know that pretty woman that you like to look at, you're going to go blind, and you're never going to see her again. You know, huh? You know, and they're still going to go, huh? You know. But it almost takes them witnessing or being a part of it when somebody does get a piece of sawdust in their eye or does have some silly little thing happen for them to realize, oh yeah, I've got to wear my hard hat all the time.
Oh, 100%. You do not fully appreciate what people are saying until either you experience it or someone you're very close to. Until you see it firsthand, you're not gonna you don't get it, you know.
And you really get it when you're the climber and you drop a piece of wood, even a small piece of wood, and a groundsman walks underneath you and you hit him on the hard hat, not on purpose, but it's like, oh my God, I almost killed that guy.
Oh yeah.
And that happened to me once, only once.
Okay.
The guy wasn't hurt. The hard hat saved him.
Wow.
But I felt so stupid. But it was the groundsman's fault too. The groundsman just, you know, kept walking underneath me without looking up. You know, I was working and dropping chunks of wood, and sure enough, hit him right in the head.
One of the guys that I used to work with at Norm's, he was famous for, like, as soon as the cutting was done and the climber was down, he would take off his helmet and throw it on the ground, and we would start cleaning up because he just hated wearing his helmet for whatever reason. And this one time, we had just trimmed a big locust. And he did the same thing. He took his helmet off and he was raking underneath the tree, and a little twig the size of your finger fell out of that tree and hit him right on the head. He took, I think it was like 7 or 10 staples. It was a serious injury from just a little twig, and I've had that discussion with people before about PPE in general. Like, the reason you wear this stuff is not for the hazards that you can see. Like if I'm wearing a helmet and I see something coming for my head, I'm going to move. I'm not just going to stand there and take it because I have a helmet on. You know what I mean? The reason you have a helmet is for the stuff that you don't see coming, right?
Yeah.
So anyway.
I talk to my guys a lot about spatial awareness too.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll have a guy that focuses on raking or cleaning up, and that's all they see.
Mm-hmm.
And a kid on a bicycle will fly through the work scene, and the guy doesn't even see him coming.
Yeah.
And that really bothers me, because you have to be aware of so many things: traffic, kids coming out of nowhere, bicycles coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
People opening the door and coming out to ask you a question when you're, still up in the tree right over the doorway. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And you have to. You almost have to have peripheral vision constantly working.
Definitely. Yeah. Situational awareness.
People are just focusing on what they see right in front of them and don't see anything else.
Yeah.
They're going to get hurt real fast.
Yeah, definitely. Well, listen, Blair, I could talk to you for hours. This has been a blast. But I want to be respectful of your time. I wanted to wrap up by asking you, what advice would you have for your younger self? Let's say you were starting over in this industry.
Well, if I could go back in time and tell young Blair what old Blair has learned.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. Run! No, no, that's hard. That's really, really hard. I think I would have, because to get somewhere, you've got to go through all the steps, and the mistakes that you make are just as important as the correct things that you learn.
Yeah.
When you make a mistake, you don't do it again.
Yeah.
You clear that out. It's like you have this mental vision of, okay, I've been here before. This is definitely going to be a barber chair.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Sure. You've got these little triggers that come off in your head,
mm-hmm.
and unless you make those mistakes, you don't realize them.
Yeah.
But if I was going to go back in time, I probably would have made a bigger investment in better equipment at an earlier age, because I sort of limped along with old gear for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably 20 years before I really upgraded and started buying, new chippers and, much better trucks and much better equipment. Now I've got a real nice bucket truck. But even now, everything's starting to get a little bit older, but my investments in equipment really helped me advance my business faster, because I wasn't fixing stuff all the time or dealing with breakdowns,
mm-hmm.
As well as image.
Mm-hmm.
Image is so important. You show up in an old beat up truck, people don't think highly of you.
Yeah. They're going to expect you to have the lowest price, right?
Yeah. And a lot of people, that's all they care about. A lot of know that.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they don't care whether they get a good job or a bad job.
Mm-hmm.
They just want the cheapest price possible.
Yeah.
And some parts of the country, there's a lot of guys that they're just trying to survive, and they'll do anything.
Yeah.
Which makes it kind of difficult for the industry as a whole. When we're trying to educate arborists and tree workers and the industry as to why we're making so many mistakes when people are still making those mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But getting back to your question, I don't know if there's anything I would really, really say.
Yeah.
Because you learn from everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How about you? What would you tell your younger self? Young man, what mistakes have you made?
I've made them all. Yeah, for me on the business side of it, so much of it comes down to the idea of working on your business as opposed to working in your business. You know what I mean? When you're so close to it, you just it's like you don't have the perspective to be able to grow and do the things, focus on the things that you need to be doing, because you're so caught up in the day-to-day of calling people and doing quotes and doing tree work. You know what I mean? So
all right, you want a little bit of advice from an old guy to a young guy?
Absolutely.
All right, plant more trees yourself, because when you're old, you get to go back and see the trees that you planted when you're young.
Yeah.
And there's something really remarkable about going up to a giant tree and sitting there and looking at it and saying, I planted this thing.
Yeah. I love that.
But if you don't do it, I've got hundreds of trees that I still go walking around. I've got one at a church that I planted 27 years ago. That it's a deodar cedar. It's got a trunk now of about 17 or 18 inches, and it's about 60 feet tall.
Wow. And
I just think, wow, that thing has really become a magnificent tree, and I put it there.
Yeah. I love that. That's great advice. Well, well, this has been a lot of fun, Blair. I really appreciate the perspective from someone like you who's been doing this for so long. So I'm really
both of us are working to help our industry, and my hat's off to you. Keep up the hard work. I pay attention to your channel. Hopefully, you'll pay attention to mine. And,
yep, absolutely.
And together we can make a small dent in our industry.
Oh, that sounds good, man. Really appreciate that. What is the best way for people to connect with you online?
You can type in Saratoga Tree Service and find my website. You can type in my name, Blair Glenn, with 2 N's, and I'm everywhere.
Okay.
My YouTube channel is called Arborist Blair Glenn. And there's a lot of good stuff on there. I've got about 700 videos on trees and tree care, and usually the video sort of reveals itself. Like I'll run into a situation, a tree that's ready to fall, or a tree that's already hit a car, or something that that I want to talk about. And a lot of them, I think I've got some pretty interesting stuff in there, pretty interesting stories.
Yeah, I love it. So I will put I'll put links to all that stuff on the show notes page, so that'll be an easy way for people to find you and get in touch if they have more questions.
I mentioned you in my most recent YouTube video. I don't know if you saw it or not.
I didn't see your newest one, no.
Well, you're going to have to go find it.
I will. I will do that. Well, that's awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. All right. We'll talk to you
someday
later.
We got to meet.
Oh, absolutely.
You ever come to California?
I have never been to California. No.
Well, there you go. Now you got a reason. All right, Patrick.
All right. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye. Wow, that was so good. Thank you so much, Blair, for coming on the show. Like I say, I could seriously talk to you for hours, and we actually did end up talking for quite a while after I shut the recorder off. I should have just recorded all of that as well, but that was a lot of fun. So Climber Nation, if you're not already subscribed to both of our YouTube channels, then you are my worst friend. But seriously, go on YouTube, look up Arborist Blair Glenn, subscribe to him. He's got an amazing YouTube channel there. He's got a lot of stuff going on. He uploads videos all the time, and he's just a class act, and he's full of wisdom. So he's just a really good guy. I would appreciate it if you go on YouTube and subscribe to his channel, as well as my channel, Educated Climber. If you're not already subscribed, we would both just really appreciate that. So, until next time, climb high, work smart, and read more. Tree Mugs out.
The Educated Climber Podcast.
The show for arborists, tree climbers, and entrepreneurs who make their living in the canopy.
Climb high, work smart, read more.